Welcome to Pastor's Chat today. We're continuing to look at chapter 10. Chapter 10 is an interesting chapter as Jesus, in the first verses of this chapter, sends out the 70, two by two, to go before him as they share the message of the gospel of the kingdom. The King is here. And my friend, we are part of that 70 today. We go before him. And actually, he's with us even as we go. And so we go forth as ambassadors. The first part of this chapter, we are ambassadors. We have the greatest message the world has ever heard. The message of love and grace, and the message that God cares about you so much he sent his son to die for you. We are his ambassadors today. We stand in Christ's stead to beseech people to be reconciled to God through Jesus Christ. But then we also notice that we're neighbors. He tells the story of the Good Samaritan. Who is my neighbor? And there are people that are needy, that are hurting, that are in poverty, that need everything you can imagine, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, and we are to be their neighbors. And of course, as a neighbor, the person closest to us is the one that we should reach out to and help as God has them cross our path providentially with his divine appointments. And now, as we come to the end of the chapter, we are worshipers. And that's most important of all. Before we can be good neighbors, before we can be good ambassadors, we must be worshipers. And that's what we see in these last verses, verse 38 through 42. Now it happened, as they went, that he entered a certain village, and a certain woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary, who also sat at Jesus' feet and heard his word. But Martha was distracted with much serving. And she approached him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Therefore, tell her to help me. And Jesus answered and said to her, Martha, Martha, you're worried and troubled about many things, but one thing is needed, and Mary has chosen that good part, which will not be taken away from her. Now, how interesting it is. So Jesus, in chapter 9, in verse 51, it says, it came to pass when the time had come for him to be received up, he steadfastly set his face to go to Jerusalem. So we know now that we're almost in the third and a half, last of the third year, maybe third and a half of last year of Jesus' ministry. He's been up in the area of Galilee ministering, and now he's left there and he's on his way to Jerusalem. And as he goes to Jerusalem, just before you get into Jerusalem, there's a little village called Bethany, on the road actually down to Jericho. And so he goes through that village. When he does, Martha invites him into their house for a dinner. Now remember, this is the same Martha and Mary that has a brother named Lazarus, and Jesus no doubt has become friends with them, and they have provided a place for him to stay. But when they're there, you notice that Martha gets really busy preparing a meal for Jesus. I'm not sure he needed that meal. He was on his way to Jerusalem, but she prepared it. And as she was preparing, her sister Mary, who's called Mary of Bethany, and by the way, Mary shows up 3 times in the gospel record, and on each occasion, at the same place, she's at the feet of Jesus. And here in Luke chapter 10, verse 39, she says she sits at his feet. And I like that. It says it very clearly, who also sat at Jesus' feet. And then in John chapter 11, verse 32, she fell at his feet and shared her woe. And then in John 12:3, she came to his feet and poured out her worship on him. And so you see, this is a lady who has come to fall in love with Jesus for who he is and wants to be with him, and she is a worshiper. Now, Martha's serving, and we'll be talking more about this tomorrow, but we must have a balance. It doesn't mean we either choose to serve or we choose to worship. No, we worship and we serve, and we can do them both. And we'll talk about how we can do that. Well, I want to encourage you today. Let's be both, okay? Let's be a Martha who's willing to serve. We go forth as ambassadors. We serve our neighbors, but we also must take time always take time to be holy and to be a worshiper. May God help us to do that today too. God bless you, and you have a wonderful, wonderful day.